We're back here the whole 9 yards on Sunday evening, 5:54 p.m. We just finished recording the NBA episode. If you had watched that already, if not, well, hello. Uh, Lots of stuff happening in MLB. We haven't talked too much MLB. I mean, it's been pretty quiet. Some surprises, some not surprises. But there's been a bunch of trades, been a bunch of stuff. Both of our teams, Yankees and Nationals, have been big during this trade deadline. Some big buyers, some big sellers. We'll start with the Yankees. Brandon, I mean, the Yankees have not performed to expectations this year. They go out, make a couple moves. How do you feel about their trade deadline?
Yeah, so I knew that they were going to be buying. Them before this weekend series that they had, where they did sweep the Marlins, which obviously helps with after the trade deadline. But they were 53-48. They're now 2 games back to the wild card. They were like I think 4.5 games out of the wild card before the trade deadline and everything. So they were still going to buy because you have a real shot at making the playoffs. You knew they weren't going to sell if anything, and you maybe just trading expiring or something, but they didn't even really do that. So you get Joey Gallo from the Rangers, didn't give up a lot, and they don't have to pay any of his contract, which I think is huge. So they didn't even give up any top 10 prospects. I forget exactly what he's making. I think it's like $4 million, I think it is, or $6 million, whatever it is. They don't have to pay any of that, and he's going to be on the team for next year as well. So I thought that was a good trade. Again, it's a left-handed bat who gives you Gold Glove defense. He's basically the same hitter that you already have for a lot of the guys, but he gets on base at a really high percentage, which is really all they care about. They don't care if he strikes out a million times and hits 220, which is what he's hitting. He has 25 homers, I think, and he gets on base at over, I think, like a 380 clip or something. So you'll take that. And he's shown so far he's gotten on base a couple times in this weekend series. So I think it's definitely worth it. I think it was a good trade. They also traded for Anthony Rizzo, who's been great since in these 3 games since they got him. But I thought that was a really good trade too. You had Luke Voigt at first, who's been injured all year, and even when he's playing, he wasn't very good. And you get another left-handed bat, which is obviously what they need. Now they have 2 permanent lefties in their lineup in a completely full right-handed lineup. Again, Rizzo, they don't have to pay any of his salary. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, but you're not expecting to re-sign him anyways. So I think it was a good trade. He's going to be really impactful for this team. Your defense gets better with both these trades. They're both Gold Glove guys. They both won Gold Gloves. Both left-handed bats. They both get on base at a super high rate. Rizzo does as well. Rizzo doesn't strike out as much, but he also can hit homers. Being a lefty at Yankee Stadium helps a ton. Just the short porch. So I think he's going to be super useful, super impactful. I think these trades do help them. We'll see if it gets them in the playoffs. I think their offense is now going to come along with, the versatility in your lineup, just better players, guys getting more healthy, getting more consistent. I think is a huge key. But I think their pitching is I think it's the biggest. They didn't really address it. The bullpen, they didn't do anything. They traded guys. They got Clay Holmes, who was from the Pirates. They think he could do better than what his stats were saying. They gave up 2 guys in Justin Wilson and Luis Sessa, who they were kind of relying on. They thought would be big pieces of their bullpen. They traded them. They only added Clay Holmes. Starting rotation, they got Andrew Heaney, who I think it would rather be a 5 or maybe for the rest of the season. But if anything, he's in the bullpen. So I guess it's another lefty for your bullpen. You can kind of go long innings, but they didn't really do much pitching wise. So I think that's going to be a concern because I think the offense, which has been the weaker part this season, is going to be the stronger part, which is what it should have been at the beginning of the season. And the pitching is going to go down. But so far, it's been pretty good. If Cole can keep pitching like a Cy Young candidate, which he's doing, Montgomery's giving you good starts out of that 4 spot, kind of your 3 spot now. Tyone's been a lot better recently, Herman. So you can get these guys giving you consistent starts. And the bullpen's getting better, which it has been. Chapman's been a lot better. So I think everything's going the right direction, which is what you want. And again, they're only 2 games out of the wild card. I think they're more talented than I think it's the Athletics in that second spot. So yeah, it's Oakland in that second spot. I think they're way more talented. Oakland did nothing at the trade deadline. They got Marte, I guess I should say, but I don't know how big he's going to be with that team. Honestly, they gave up Luzardo, a good pitcher for them. So I think the Yankees did a good trade deadline, and so far it's worked out. They've won 3 in a row. So, and they play the Orioles this next series. So it's good games to pick up wins against 2 bad teams. So I think they had a good deadline.
I would agree. I mean, when you don't give up much and you get, I mean, like you were saying, I don't even need to repeat it. It's hard to go wrong. I still think the Yankees on paper are one of the best, if not the just most talented team in the American League on paper. Now, we'll see how that turns out. I think their team is better in a postseason than a regular season. A team like a Red Sox is better in regular season. Just a lot of advanced analytics with Chaim Bloom as the GM. It's a much more analytics based, and a 162 game regular season that's much more favorable. But I think the Yankees have bigger, power bats. Gallo and Rizzo, I think, will show more and be much more helpful in the postseason. I mean, in the regular season too, but I think those are just two guys that should help a lot in the postseason. Depth in starting pitching doesn't matter nearly as much in the postseason for obvious reasons. I like the Yankees. I still think on paper they should be the best team in the AL East. Obviously, record wise, they're not. They should theoretically be the best team in the AL. I think the Astros are still a really good team. The Athletics, I would agree. I'm not as big on as I think other people are. There's some local guys that like the Athletics a lot that I follow, but my team, I guess we can talk about the Nationals. They pretty much sold everything almost. I mean, the biggest trade was the Scherzer and Trey Turner trade, and that was pretty much the biggest trade at the deadline, just because it does suck because it almost feels like they just gave a championship, a World Series, at least appearance, straight to the Dodgers, and honestly, it does kind of annoy me because I just like the Dodgers are a rival. I consider the Dodgers a rival of the Nationals, even though there's not much there. It's just, I feel like the Dodgers just one of the, to me, I just hate the Dodgers. I don't like them. They're my least favorite team in the league, if not, I mean, yeah, one of the most, if not the most. And they've pretty much got handed just, they already had an insane roster. And then you add Turner and Scherzer on top of that. Like you have guys that would be like top 3 players on teams that don't even have a position to play on the field on this team at this point. I mean, to me, it's like, how do they not win the World Series? Even if they had, I don't know, 3 of their best 7 players get injured, odds are they're probably still the favorites. Like this team to me is so dominant. And, record wise, I mean, they're not even leading their division right now, but I don't even think it matters. I mean, Scherzer's a guy who in the postseason should be a dominant pitcher who can go up against anybody. And Turner's an MVP candidate this year. He's elite speed, pretty elite fielding. He's had elite power. He's a guy that's been an NL MVP candidate this year, so he should continue to be that. I don't see why he wouldn't. As far as the Nationals themselves are concerned, there's not too much to say. I'm not going to get too far into like, do I like this prospect? Do I not like this prospect? Because the reality is I don't know. I just like, who knows? Unless you're like following minor league teams like that closely. But if it's the most you could get, it's the most you could get. It sucks to have to trade, a guy like Scherzer, who's one of the faces of the league and was the face of the Nationals for a while, and a guy like Turner, who was one of my favorite players in the Nationals for the past, 4, 5 years. Ever since, he's got called up, it sucks. But if that's the most you can get, that's the most you can get, I guess. We'll see how the rebuild goes. But the Dodgers look like an insane team. And if anybody beats them in the NL, I'll be surprised, even though the Padres look really awesome and they've had so much hype. And the Giants just made a move for Chris Bryant and they look amazing as well. There's other teams as well that look really good but I mean, the Dodgers are so talented. It feels like one of those KD rings, and they don't necessarily I don't know if they have like a KD type of person that's very unlikable to me, but it feels like one of those KD rings where it was like, okay, I mean, yeah, congrats, but like, I mean, if in the playoffs they sweep or get close to sweeping every team, if it's sweeps and gentlemen sweeps and they win the World Series, like what am I going to take away from that? And even if you ask some of these players, like, let's just say the Dodgers win the World Series and you ask Scherzer, what does this ring mean to him compared to the Nationals one? I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that those rings would not be equal in his mind. Even if he says they are, he would not think that at all. Same with Turner and same with anybody on that team, even compared to the COVID ring that they have. And even that one's a little bit tarnished because it's, that's the one time the Dodgers will actually win the World Series is during, frankly, it's during a COVID year. And then they have a year like this where it's like, yeah, I mean, you won it fair and square, but I mean, does that
Yeah.
do much for anybody's legacy? No.
Yeah, and I mean, the one thing I'll say is that I mean, baseball is just so different than the NBA that like I wouldn't be surprised if they did lose because like someone else has a bad start and you just are down 4 runs, you lose. But I mean, I do agree. Obviously, they're stacked. I mean, their lineup is basically an all-star team. I mean, like, and that's not even a joke. I mean, literally every single player on their team had a shot at making the all-star team or made the all-star team. So and I think their weak. It's weird to say, but their weakest part of the team is Cody Bellinger. I mean, I think he's like the worst player on their team, which is crazy to think. I mean, he won the MVP 2 years ago. He's one of the best players in the league, but he's hitting like what, like 180, 185 for the year or whatever. So he's probably the worst player on their team. And like you could easily just put him on the bench. Like they're not going to do this, at least not right now. But you could put him on the bench, and whoever you bring in is going to be like basically like an all-star. Like again, AJ Pollock or Chris Taylor is going to be on their bench, which is crazy. I think AJ Pollock has 20 homers. Chris Taylor was an all-star, and he's been one of their best players all season. So it's crazy to think about. Corey Seager is coming back. I think he just got reinstated, so he wasn't even on this team. Now you have him, Seeger, Turner, both Turners, I should say. Muncy at first, Poole's off the bench, Gavin Lux off the bench, Pollock off the bench. So like it's a crazy team. And again, Mookie's injured right now. Bellinger's not even playing well. It is ridiculous. Kershaw's injured. They still have problems with their bullpen, which is easily their scariest, the weakest part of their team, I should say, is their bullpen. But starting wise, you have Buehler game 1, Scherzer game 2, Kershaw, assuming healthy, game 3. I mean, that's what you have your first 3 games. That's a death rotation you have to go against. So you just hope that pitch count goes up and you go against the bullpen. But again, then their offense can put up 8 runs. So you're right. The Dodgers are easily the most complete team, but they're not even winning their own division right now. And they may not even win their own division. They might come in second place and then have to play the wild card game, which they
They
could
might come
lose.
in third place.
They
Yeah.
might come in third place. I mean, the one thing that helps them is that, Tatis got injured last night, and it seems like he could possibly be out for the rest of the season. I don't think they came out exactly what the injury was, but it's something with the shoulder. I think he like dislocated it, so he might be out the rest of the season. But again, they're going to play there. It looks like right now they have to be in that wild card. I mean, they are right now, so we'll see. But even still, I mean, that's going to be, they're so dominant, at least on paper and everything. So you're right. They definitely helping them out. I think the Nationals got a pretty good return. I mean, Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray were their top 2 prospects, and they've been pretty good. But you're right. They gave them, a Hall of Fame pitcher and one like an MVP, possible candidate in Trey Turner. So it is kind of crazy to think about that they both got him.
Yeah, and Turner is a guy that's scared to give up because I mean, it's unbelievable. This Dodgers team, it's just crazy because they literally have nothing to gain from winning this World Series. If nobody's going to be surprised if they win this World Series, nobody's going to be like, wow, they fought through so much adversity, unless like somehow, Dodger Stadium gets like blown up mid-game or something and they have to bring their like AAA team onto the World Series or something. I don't even know what would have to happen for me to like respect, not even respect. I mean, I these guys are all MLB players. I something insane would have to happen for me to like actually like this World Series, championship for the Dodgers. They just have so much, and it's insane. And I don't know any team that in the postseason could compete. Yeah, I mean, yeah, their bullpen's not great, but when you have a lineup that you have, and you have some insane starting pitching as well, assuming people are healthy, and assuming Kershaw isn't, like 20 whatever early 2010s Clayton Kershaw. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess speaking of another team that blew it up, like the Nationals, the Cubs, and we talked about Rizzo before, and you mentioned Bryant also. So Chris Bryant goes to the Giants. For not a great return. There was a false report about being like a really good return. It wasn't that. It's not a great return, but again, he's gonna be a free agent. We'll see if he resigns to the Giants. He might really like it, but he's definitely not gonna go back to the Cubs. That's for sure. But that's a good trade for the Giants. Again, they needed to do something. They didn't do anything. And the Dodgers obviously made that trade. The Padres, they got some bullpen guys. And the Giants literally, I don't even think they made a trade. I think they may have got Tony Watson, who's a left-handed reliever, but that was something. He's going to help that lineup. Again, it's a lineup that doesn't have a lot of like amazing players, but they're just playing really well. And obviously, they have the best record in the league, I think. So he's obviously going to help. And he's been a little cold lately, but he's still obviously a really good player. They, like I said, traded Rizzo to the Yankees. They traded Javier Baez to the Mets. That would happen kind of later on, that was like right before the deadline, basically. So we didn't know if that was going to happen. I think once they traded Rizzo, it seemed like they were going to trade all of them, because you're maybe thinking, okay, Bryant's probably going to go. Kimbrel, who I didn't mention, he went to the White Sox. Weird to trade with the White Sox, but they got a decent return back for him. But once Rizzo went, I think it was pretty clear that they're all going to go. You thought Kimbrel, Bryant, but then Baez and Rizzo you weren't so sure on. But again, once Rizzo went, it was pretty clear that Baez was going to go too. So they completely blew it up. The whole 2016 team is not there, I think, except for Contreras, who's still on the team. Got to kind of feel bad for him. But yeah, they completely blew it up. And they got decent returns, nothing amazing. I think the best they got was probably Nick Madrigal, who's injured this season. So we'll see how it works out. Again, it's prospects, it's minor leaguers. You don't know. It's going to be a couple of years for them, obviously. But I guess, what do you think about them, going full rebuild? And I guess, how about the deals that they made, I guess, for, kind of for the other teams? The White Sox getting Kimbrel, Giants getting Bryant, and the Mets getting Baez. What do you think about all three?
Well, as far as the Cubs are concerned, everybody that watches all of our viewers know that I'm anti, like being middle of the pack in pretty much any sport except for maybe football. But I think it was a good move for the Cubs to blow it up. I think it was fairly obvious they needed to do that. The Giants trading for Chris Bryant, I think, is a good move. I mean, they're a team that people, like even myself, have kind of doubted, like, how is this going to translate to playoff baseball? And I think Chris Bryant is a guy who's been an MVP candidate, and he should.
MVP.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, this should add to the Giants' chances. I mean, I don't know if that would pick them against the Dodgers. I definitely wouldn't, but I like the trade. Baez to the Mets. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to feel about it. I think they're a team that should buy a trade deadline, but there are also a lot of other teams that I think are probably better than the Mets right now. But again, if you're going to win your division and you're not going to have to play in a wild card, and you can just hope you get a lucky road, maybe you don't have to face the Dodgers, and the Dodgers do get eliminated relatively early, and your road is looking like, I don't know, some combination of like the Brewers and the Giants, and I don't know, like the Brewers or Giants or Padres or something with an injured Tatis, maybe, like, then you're cooking. Do I love Baez as a player? No. I mean, I think he's more of a one-year wonder type of guy than a guy like, I mean, obviously I'd rather have a Chris Bryant than a Javier Baez right now, but I don't think it's a horrible trade. Kimbrel, I mean, I think it's a good trade for the White Sox. I'm not even sure how good or bad their bullpen is. I'm assuming it's not as good, which is why you would need to add a guy like Kimbrel.
Well, I would say it's probably one of the better. I think they just
I don't know. I don't know much about the White Sox bullpen. So I mean, I don't know. But I mean, they're a competitive team. If you're buying, you're buying. So it should work out. They have a real chance. There's no Dodgers to me in the AL. I think you can easily go toe to toe with an Astros or an A's or a Rays, Red Sox, Yankees in the postseason. So I like the move.
But yeah, I think the White Sox are the best team in the AL. They don't have the best record. The Rays have 63 wins, Red Sox have 63 wins, and Astros have 64. The White Sox have 62, but I don't think that matters. I think the White Sox are the best team. I think the only concern is their rotation. I think their bullpen, they have Hendricks, they now have Kimbrel, you have Bummer, you have Kopech, you have Crochet. Their bullpen's loaded. And to answer your question, they do have a really good bullpen. Their lineup has been injured the entire year, and now they're finally getting guys back. They got Jimenez back. Grandal's been out. He's going to come back soon. Robert's been out the entire year. He's going to come back soon. You still have Abreu, Makata, Anderson. They got Cesar Hernandez. So their lineup's going to be at full strength, which is scary because, again, they've been this good without them at full strength. I think the only question is the rotation. I wish they probably would have done something there, but you still have three starters, Rodon, Giolito, and Keuchel. So that should be your three starters. And actually, they have Lance Lynn also. So I guess one of those guys is your fourth starter. But They have a good four. Again, Keuchel's probably, I guess, the only question there. But he's been a big postseason pitcher, and he's won a World Series with the Astros. So he has that playoff experience. So I think they're probably the best team. I think Timberwolves they didn't have to get him, but they did to make their team even better. So why not do it? For Baez and the Mets, I think if they don't, like, obviously they had to buy, they're leading their division, and they just had to do that, obviously. But we'll see what happens. So when Lindor comes back, he's obviously going to go to second. So that will work out. But I agree. I don't love him as a player. And he's going to be a free agent. They didn't have to give up anything amazing for him. So that does help. But, what's he going to bring to you exactly? And if you don't make a deep playoff push, again, you're not going to have to face you're not going to have to face two of Giants, Padres, Dodgers, which is huge. I mean, you're only going to face one of those teams because the wild card's going to knock one of them out. And then I would assume that the Giants or the Dodgers will have the best record at the end of the year. So again, they're going to play them in that technically first round. So you'd have to face one of those teams coming out, or even the Brewers. I mean, you have to play the Brewers, obviously. So if you don't make a deep playoff push, then I think there's worrisome because you're probably not going to re-sign him. He's probably going to want a pretty good contract. You're not going to have the money to do it. So that's a little worrisome. Again, you could have added to the pitching rotation. You didn't. You could have added to the bullpen. You didn't. So again, you got Rich Hill, but that's just like another guy for you basically. So there's a couple questions there. I think the Phillies got better they had a couple trades, and they're only 3.5 back from the Mets right now. So we'll see if they maybe win the division again. If you don't win your division, and if you're in the NL East or NL Central, you're not making the playoffs. So I think there's some questions with the Mets, and I don't exactly know if Baez was the correct answer, but it definitely helps to have him. I just don't know how much it's going to help when looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, if they were to go in the starting pitching right, I guess. I mean, I don't know what their offers were for. I mean, I guess you just weren't going to get Scherzer. I mean, because he's in division, I guess. I don't know who exactly you would have been looking to get. I don't know if Baez was like a plan C or a plan B or whatever, but yeah, I would agree. I'm not a big Baez fan, but
yeah, and I think probably the next biggest trade, at least definitely for the guys they gave up for him, was Jose Berrios from the Twins to the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays give up 2 top 5 prospects for him, which seems like a lot. They gave up Austin Martin, who's from Vanderbilt. I think he went 5th overall like 2 years ago. And then Simeon Woods Richardson, who they got from the Mets in the Marcus Stroman deal. That was a lot to give up for Berrios. Now, I know he's under contract. I know obviously this season. I'm pretty sure for next season, and then I think he's a free agent, or it's either one more year. I just have to look that up. But he's a really good pitcher, but I don't know if he's that good to give up 2 of your top 5 prospects like that. But his first start was today. He was pretty good. It was against the Royals, but it was still a pretty good start. But I don't know if he's like your number 1 or 2. I think he's like a really solid 3. Like, you're very comfortable with him being your 3, and he definitely has the potential to be a 2. But that was always the criticism of him, was that he was never able to have the potential of that number 1 guy with the Twins, or they probably wouldn't have traded him. So I just think it was a lot to give up. But if it works out, again, it works out. I would never question someone for if it works out and you give up a ton to get that guy, because if it works out, then what? Like, who cares? Who cares if you gave up your 2 top 5 prospects if they can make a World Series with him as their number 1 pitcher. So we'll see how that works out. But I just thought that was a lot to give up for a guy that has been really good, but not a Cy Young candidate type of guy.
yeah, it seems like a lot to give up. I mean, who knows how good the prospects end up, but it doesn't really matter. That's still a lot to give up. I don't know that Berrios matches their timeline very well. Are you expecting to be World Series?
Yeah.
I mean, are you expecting to be a top 2 team in your division even in the next 2 years? I don't even know if that's the case.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's tough because I don't know that he fits their timeline, and it's a lot to give up. And I think, even if just one of those prospects turns out well, he might not even have to be as good as a guy like Berrios is right now, but if he's close and you're not having to pay money and he fits the timeline with Vladdy and all those guys better, then I think that's the better move. You'd ideally like to, you'd probably have to see results this year or next year, right? I mean, I would assume they can't be the 4th best team in their division. That's for sure. I mean,
yeah,
they have to be better than the Rays and the Sox and the Yankees, or at least a combination of some of them. So it's tricky. We'll see, but it's kind of like is this team trying to actually win World Series, or are they just trying to be a very, very good playoff team? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, for this year, I think that expectation of, making a deep playoff run is unrealistic. But next year, I think it's for sure there. Again, we always think the Rays are going to come back, to normalcy and be not a great team because they're, just like the injuries that they have, the pitchers, the payroll, everything. But again, they're one of the best teams in the AL again. So you just hope that next year is the year where they fall back, where they fall down. The Yankees, again, you'd assume would be better than they are right now. The Red Sox, they've been surprising. I didn't think they'd be this good. I thought they'd be like kind of middle of the pack, but you'd probably think they come back just a little bit because that pitching really isn't there. But again, who knows? So you're right. They're probably the third best team in the division. Again, probably even fourth best team in the division, even going into next year. So I give them credit for going for it, but I think the timeline, I think you're probably to be a true contender is probably 2 to 3 years at the earliest, not 1 to 2 years. So I think it was just a lot to give up for a guy, again, who is controllable, but by the time you actually are a contender, that's when he's going to be a free agent. And he's a little bit older. I think he's 28 years old, I think he is. I'll look it up right now.
27.
27. So again, by the time he's actually a free agent, you're gonna have to pay him, and are you really gonna want to pay for a guy that's gonna be older? I don't know. We'll see. So, but I guess that was probably the biggest trades that happened. But I think I think we should talk about the guys who didn't get traded just quickly, guys who we thought would probably get traded. And I think the first one's Trevor Story. I mean, he was a clear trade candidate from the beginning of the season. At any point until the trade deadline, it seemed like he was absolutely going to get traded, and he didn't. Whether the offers weren't there or, just teams really weren't that interested anymore, honestly, because, a Baez gets traded, a Bryant gets traded. The Yankees don't need him. The Athletics, it seemed like they were in on him, but they really weren't. So, and I think there was a report, like 2 days ago or yesterday that he was surprised he didn't get traded. He thought he for sure was going to. So that was a guy that, again, everyone thought he was, and he didn't. So now he's going to walk away in free agency, and they would have got nothing back for him. A guy that you for sure thought he was going to get traded and at least get something back. It may have not been the greatest return, but just to get something back for a guy who is going to leave at the end of the season. So what do you think about Story not getting traded?
I mean, I think the Rockies probably should have. I don't. I mean, it's difficult because I just don't know what they would have gotten. I mean, it's similar to if Arenado had never gotten traded, then I mean, you never know. I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's like. I mean, he doesn't like fit their timeline clearly, but he's not a guy that he's not like an old guy or anything by any means. So I don't think it's a bad move to not trade him if you weren't going to get anything for him. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what the offers were. Again, we'll probably never know that, but I'm just assuming the offers weren't there, that you at least thought, again, they're going to put a qualifying offer on him, so you at least get a first round pick, because again, he's going to leave. So you'll get a first round pick for next year's draft, or I guess maybe the year after that. So I guess that's worth it. If you didn't have that, then I think teams definitely would have traded for him. The Rockies definitely would have been way more willing to trade for him, but I guess that qualifying offer kind of helps it out on the Rockies end that you didn't have to trade him, so you at least get a first round pick. But I think another guy was Byron Buxton, who I think there was conversations that he was going to get traded. He didn't agree to a contract extension with them. Again, he's still under contract for next year, but it seems like he probably will get traded in the off season. You would think. I mean, if you can't agree on a contract extension right now, it just doesn't. In the past, it just doesn't seem like that will happen in the future. Before your contract's over. So he didn't get traded. It seemed like he was going to, like I said, a couple of teams were definitely in on him for sure. But he didn't get traded. And again, he has all the talent. He has the talent of a top 5 guy in the league, I think for sure. He's the defense. He's probably the best defender outfielder in the league, probably him and Mookie or whatever. And offensively, I mean, he can hit like 30 homers, steal 30 bags, hit you like he at best could hit you like 280, 290. So he's definitely one of the most talented guys in the league, but he's just always injured. So that's for sure the problem with him. But again, a guy who I thought I wasn't as confident as in Story, but I thought probably like a 70%, 80% chance he was going to get traded, especially after, the extension talks fell through. So I guess what do you think about Buxton? I guess not going at the deadline.
Quickly before I get into Buxton, last thing I'll say about Story is, I mean, the trickiest thing is the Rockies are they're like, I don't know, they're just like such a dysfunctional organization that maybe they did have good offers. I don't know if I want to give them the benefit of the doubt or not, because I mean, we've seen it with Arenado just like holding on to people, and then you got like almost, I mean, you got like what, cash for Arenado essentially. So it's like, I don't know. I know even Story was a little bit surprised. I don't know. I mean, but yeah, Buxton. I think he was what? I mean, I think he might have been like the first or second overall pick like 10 plus years ago. He's not
The
even
first
old.
overall pick. Yeah.
Um,
Or yeah, I think he was. Yeah.
but yeah, I would agree. He has talent to be a top, I don't know about 5, but he's a guy that he could be a top guy in the league. He could be the best player on your team. Um, I would have liked to see him traded because, again, like, do you want to lose people for nothing? Do you want to lose people for less than you probably should have gotten them at the very best case? It's surprising. We don't know what the offers would have been, but yeah, I mean, he was a guy that you would have assumed would have been traded just because, I mean, the Twins, I don't know.
He was the second pick of the 2012 draft. I just looked it up, but yeah, he's just like a guy who has all the talent in the world, can't stay healthy at all. But again, just him not, I'm not agreeing to that contract extension. I just thought for sure that he was going to get traded. Again, he has a year left on that contract, so you get even more in return. But maybe teams were scared off the injuries. He's only 27, so I mean, he's still super young. You could still trade him and stuff and have pretty good value for a guy who's that young with a year of controls. So the offers probably weren't there, or they were there and they thought they could maybe settle it in the off season, maybe. But that was definitely surprising. But
Okay, this was the Correa draft.
Yeah, it was the Correa draft.
Okay.
Yeah. And Mike Janino went 3. That's not a great pick, but yeah, I think that's probably the 2 guys who are the most surprising, at least for me, who didn't get traded. Maybe I'm just forgetting someone, but I think that was probably the 2 top guys. At least Story was for sure the top guy, but I don't know. Was there anyone else, or do you have anyone else in mind? I mean, most guys did get traded. There's a lot of times at deadlines where guys don't get traded. I mean, this was definitely the most exciting trade deadline for the MLB in the last, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years. If I can remember.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of names going a lot of places for
a lot
sure.
of all stars. Like usually it's just guys. Like this is like all stars, MVP. In the past, guys, Cy Young guys. Like that's it was a crazy deadline for sure.
Yeah, it's it makes me wish that if this was like. It sucks because MLB is more of like a local sport, and it's not as national as football or basketball. Like you don't follow all the teams nationally as much as you would like, football or basketball. It does kind of make me wish that like football trade deadlines looked more like this. I mean, I don't know if it would be good or bad for the league, but at least short term, like an exciting trade deadline, that would look insane. But yeah, I don't think there were many names that I was like surprised that this person didn't get traded, really. I mean, at least for the Nationals, I mean, they got rid of pretty much everybody. I mean, Schwarber, Hudson, obviously Turner and Scherzer, Hand as well to the Blue Jays. Yeah, it's pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
So
Gomes, Harrison,
yeah, Gomes.
But yeah, I mean that was like kind of the trade deadline. I guess one thing that I saw today, it actually just happened like an hour and a half ago, but Kumar Rocker, the Mets did not sign him. That was official at 5:00 today, and that's what the expectation was earlier today. So he has 2 options. It's to go back to Vanderbilt, and we'll see what this injury even is, if it's like Tommy John or if he has to miss entire next season. But to either go back to Vanderbilt or go to like an independent league, and then they're just thrown in the draft again next year. But we'll see if he even goes first round next year. Again, if it's a serious injury and he has to have surgery, or he doesn't want surgery, but it's still an injury that concerns teams, we'll even go first round next year. And if he does, it's probably going to be for like no money. it's like one of those type deals where this, when he got drafted this year, it was you're getting drafted at 10, but we're going to pay you like a top 5 guy. I think he was getting 6 million for that draft bonus. So it didn't work out. The Mets will get the 11th pick next year. That's just going to be their pick, no matter where they end up. I don't think they get 2 picks. I think, or maybe they do. I don't know, but I know for sure they're going to be the 11th pick next year. And that 6 million that they were going to offer him, that you can't use that in free agency. That's just gone now. It just goes back to the owner. Like they can't even use that at all. So a pretty big miss. But if the injury is that bad, then maybe it's not as bad of a miss. But that's something you should know before you draft a guy like that. You have all the months of research and you can't figure that out. That's I think it's just bad on the Mets for not finding out that injury before you draft them.
Yeah, it's difficult to say because I don't really know. I mean, we don't know the injury, but they do get the 11th pick if he doesn't come back. If he doesn't come, they get the 11th pick. So, I mean, like essentially you just punt a year on your draft pick. It's not the worst case ever, but yeah, I mean, it certainly isn't ideal. I know that's a shocking take, but
well, I guess what like that they just had to punt and like you kind of just have
no,
to.
I was like being sorry. I was saying like I know that's a shocking take sarcastically, but
yeah. But still, that was definitely probably that's the craziest thing from the draft. I guess we didn't really. I don't think we talked about the draft. We definitely didn't. But I mean, there was nothing absolutely. There wasn't like anything crazy. I guess. Jack Leiter went second. It was just we did play his team in high school baseball, so I guess that's that was kind of cool. But that's probably the only thing though, to be honest.
I mean, how good was he?
He was insane in high school. I mean, he like every single game he was getting 10 plus strikeouts, going 6-7 innings, and I think he threw at least one no hitter. I think he probably threw a couple no hitters. He was insane in high school.
Did he bat or no?
He might have. For senior year, he definitely didn't. Junior year, I don't think he did, but I know he did like bat earlier when he was in high school. But he went to like the best high school in New Jersey. Like it's called Del Barton. I mean, you've probably heard of it, but that's the high school that he went to. We played them in like a preseason game, but yeah, he was insane in high school. He's basically, I mean, what he was in college was literally what he was in high school, but just even better because it's high school. So.
Did you get an autograph or?
No, I didn't get an autograph, but it would probably it'd be worth it though. I mean, he went second in the draft, so
I mean, if let's just say he turns out to be a top whatever guy in baseball. I mean, you never know. Like that autograph could be worth money.
It would. Yeah, I think even just him going second, it would be. But
yeah,
I don't know. That was just cool though.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for this episode. Appreciate you stayed to the end. Appreciate if you watched the NBA and this episode. We'll be back in the next few days with more off-season stuff. Football's finally starting to get in gear here. Baseball, we're starting to get into that. We're starting to hit the stretch there. Basketball as well. I mean, to me, basketball, some of the most exciting time for basketball is the off-season. I know it's not a loaded free agency class, but we actually have more than you would think considering it's middle season baseball and two off seasons. So, but yeah, we'll be back in the next whatever. Unless you have anything else to say, then
no, that was
goodbye.
it.
All right, goodbye, everybody.